Andrew Stewart took a circuitous route from his native Scotland to Hope, Maine, where he breathed new life into the Hope General Store and sold it after 9 years, and after a brief sojourn with elephants, opened the Drouthy Bear Pub in 2015, which hopefully you all know about, and recently added Blue Baron Distillery to his endeavors. And here he is. Whoops. Sorry.
Hello. So at work, people ask me all the time, how did you get here? And I look at them and I say, I drove here. How did you get here? I know what they're asking. How did you get to Camden from Scotland? And it was the long road. It was with a lot of traveling. That's the answer. And I suppose when I think about how that happened, it's when I started traveling. And I started traveling when I was 17. When I finished secondary school, I had a summer to figure out what to do with myself before I found out my exam results and whether I got into university or not. That's how it works in the UK. And so I worked the summer on the farm, and then I had an invitation from a friend who lived in Kenya to go visit him. And that's what I did. I went to Kenya. And so I went to Kenya, and while we're there, we decided we'd go car camping. And it's a lot like car camping here in America when you go to the state park, you know, there's campsites. And so we're there, it's a lovely campsite, there's a river running through it. And at night, the first night we're there, someone from the campsite came over and started talking to us. And they're chatting around the campfire. And this guy, Barry says, so I'm opening a fish factory in Uganda on Lake Victoria, and I was wondering if you guys knew anyone who wants a job as an assistant manager. And I said, I do. At 17, with my vast knowledge of fish and Uganda and assistant managing as well, for that matter. And so the next morning, I jump in Barry's little plane, his Cessna, which was incredibly exciting. I'd never been one of those before. And we flew across Kenya to his boss's house. And his boss, true name, his name was Tubby Block. And Tubby, this is all true, Tubby was a chewing gum magnate. He sold more chewing gum in Africa than anyone else. That's how he made his money. And he was diversifying into fish factories. So, I never thought it was that funny until now. And then, so over breakfast, I had the interview, and it went well, and they gave me the job. The job consisted of, I had a boat, and the boat was full of money, and they gave me a shotgun, and I had to go around Lake Victoria and buy fish from the fishermen and bring it back to the factory to be processed. Now, at 44, I realized I didn't get the job because of my wit or intelligence or enthusiasm. It was because of my stupidity, naivety, and most importantly, my expendability. But at the time, I was thrilled. This was amazing. I mean, you know, I felt like Indiana Jones or something. And so that's great. But there was a week I had to wait before I went away to Uganda to start my job. And in that week, I went back to visit my friend. So to get back across Kenya, it was the other side of the country, I started traveling across the country. And so the first step was in a matatu. A matatu, if you don't know what it is, it's sort of a communal taxi. It's a minibus. And matatu drivers, they like to maximize profit. So they cram people in there. To the extent that a steering wheel takes up too much space. They take out the steering wheel and put a wrench on the steering column and steer like this. So you are jammed in there. And they drive at breakneck speed as well. But luckily, there are so many people in there, you don't move around too much. So this took me to the bus stop, where I boarded the bus to Rongai, which is where I was going. The bus was older than my grandparents, I'm positive. And it, again, packed full of people. It was exactly as you would imagine. There were, I'm not exaggerating, live chickens walking up and down. I spent most of the journey with a young child on my lap. And even with all this excitement, I managed to fall asleep on the bus. And when I woke up, it was dark outside, and I was about an hour, 2 hours past the stop I was supposed to get off at. And so the decision I made as I startled myself awake was to get off the bus and walk back in the opposite direction. And as soon as the bus pulled away, I thought to myself, that wasn't a good idea. So I'm at the side of the road at nighttime in a foreign country, and I'm trudging along the side of the road. But not to worry, in less than 5 minutes, there was someone walking along next to me. It turned out he was a very nice guy, super excited, super happy. He was at a missionary school, and he was learning English, and he was so excited to have someone to speak English to. So we were talking back and forth. This was a pretty remote area of Kenya, so not everyone spoke English. So that's great. So I slowly started to relax because, he's friendly, this is good, there's someone here, I can ask questions, I can figure out what's going on. Another 5 minutes goes by. All of a sudden, there are 30 to 40 people walking along with me by the side of the road. This may surprise you, but teenage Europeans didn't generally walk down the side of the road at nighttime in this area of Kenya. And so there was a certain amount of curiosity as to who I was and what I was doing. And my anxiety level probably rose in proportion to the number of people that were there. So it was high. At the time, as all British teenagers did, I smoked cigarettes. So I decided this was a good time to have a cigarette. So I lit up a cigarette, and I saw the scariest person I could possibly find, who was this guy walking right next to me. He was very scary. And I thought, I'll make a friend. So I offered him a cigarette, and he looked at me aggressively, took the whole pack, and disappeared. So I did not make a friend. But on the plus side, he was gone. So I continued walking down the road. I decided I needed to speed up my transition out of this situation. And I decided to, put my thumb out when cars went by, which wasn't very often, but I figured I needed to move out of here. And unbeknownst to me, carjackings were pretty common. It's a simple ploy. You stop the car, you kill the people, and you take the car. So the large group of people next to the road wasn't making cars stop over to help me out of my situation. Eventually, it felt like it was 2 hours, but it was probably 5 minutes for all I know, because I was petrified at the time. This truck trundles to a stop 30 yards in front of me. And so I start to walk a little bit more quickly towards it, and the whole crowd starts walking a little bit more quickly towards it. I start to jog, and the whole crowd starts to jog. In desperation, I reached into my pocket, I grabbed a handful of coins, and I threw it over my shoulder, and I sprinted as fast as my flip-flopped, backpacked body could take me to the truck. Behind me is bedlam. There is a full-on brawl. People are punching each other, people are diving on each other, people are kicking each other, there's dust everywhere. I get to the truck, they open the door, and they haul me in, and I'm off the road, and I'm in the truck. And then I look around, I'm crammed in the cab of the truck with 4 other people in this tiny truck. And we're sitting there, but I'm like, at least it's quiet. I managed to convey with my pathetic Swahili and their pretty good English and sign language that I need to go to Rongai. It's too late to explain where my friend's house is, so I say I want to go to Wazungu Hotel. Wazungu roughly translates to idiotic teenage European. So we're going to a hotel in this banana truck. We get there pretty uneventfully, and we show up to the hotel that they've decided they need to take me to. And it's one of the nicest hotels I've ever seen in my entire life. It's a country club. And it's the sort of place with valet parking. And I pull up in a dusty, beaten-up banana truck to the front entrance. And I jump out, but because I've been crammed in there with all these people, my legs have fallen asleep. So I jump out and then immediately fall on my back, and I'm lying on the ground outside the main entrance to the country club as the truck pulls away. And I'm looking up at the sky, and my legs aren't really working, and this man walks over, and he looks down at me, and he says, "Would you like help with your luggage?" So I go into the hotel and I go straight to the bar, and I'm 17. And I walk up to the bar and I say, I'd like a gin and tonic. I've never had a gin and tonic, but my dad drinks gin and tonic, so I want a gin and tonic. I have a gin and tonic, and it was very comforting. Gin has always been very comforting. You've got to be careful, you can be too comfortable. But that was a seminal moment and could be one of the reasons that now at 44 I make gin. So I then go to the job in Uganda, to Lake Victoria. Barry picks me up in his plane again. I don't know why he couldn't have just flown me over in the first place. It would have saved a lot of trouble. So we go to Uganda. He drops me off. He introduces me to the manager, nice guy called Angus. And he says, Angus, train him up. Also, you're fired. I'm coming back in a week. You better be gone. Angus didn't like that. Angus decided to retaliate. His retaliation was to spend the week taking me out to restaurants and fishing on Lake Victoria. And one thing I remember distinctly is he took me to goat races. It was great. You watch goats run around a circuit and you gamble on it. It was fantastic. Barry came back at the end of the week. He said, so tell me, how'd it go? What work did you do? I said, I went goat racing. And he said, you're fired. And then I went back to Scotland. And then I went to Boston, and then I went to Wyoming, and then I went to Botswana, and then I went to Seattle, and then I went to Camden. And I've been here ever since. And that's what people are really asking me when they come in the pub and say, how did you get here? Thank you very much for listening to my story, and thank you for supporting the Wayfinder School.